Hi guys, this is just something really brief on Richard III, if you are studying that text. And what I'm going to touch on is Seneca. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but you know what my pronunciations are like, really, Geordie and all that. So basically, Shakespeare draws a strong influence from Roman drama in Richard III, especially the first century writer Seneca. All right, Seneca, which I'm sure you're aware if you study in the play. And in Seneca plays, basically, there's always a chorus. This is absent in Shakespeare's play, but what he does give us, though, is lamentations from characters such as Queen Elizabeth and the Duchess of York, and they kind of mirror and echo what would have been the chorus in a Seneca play. And you will find as well that in a Seneca play we have the use of ghosts and the supernatural. It's a very common theme, but there's a similar link there, isn't there, in Richard III, because we have this whole procession of ghosts in Richard III. So there's again that link back to Roman drama. There's an extensive use of omens and prophecies as well, a vivid description of the underworld as well. That's massive. If you check my video on man's salvation, there's a link across to that. And it's a favourite theme in the Seneca dramas is the underworld and links to the supernatural. Seneca plays, guys, are kind of, they use a spirit of violence, bloodshed, physical horror, and Richard III has nothing resembling the most repulsive descriptions and the most repulsive Senecan scenes, but it is full of violence, and we get that, don't we, with episodes The Murder of Clarence, the Two Young Princes, the execution of Hastings, the bringing of his head to Richard, the execution of Rivers, Grey, Vaughan, Buckingham. Again, you'll know how the executions play out, and again, this is a very subtle link to Seneca, who would use a lot of violence in those type of dramatic ways. Again, a similar link is that you would get a frequent description, a reference to blood, to bloody deeds committed in the past. Seneca as well, guys, tends to use certain characters and cruel tyrants, and this obviously contributes to the character of Richard III. Obviously, there's other elements that link to him, like Machiavelli as well. We absolutely would cross-reference him. Seneca frequently as well, guys, refers to the Furies. The Furies, or the Furies, however you pronounce it, Furies, are basically avenging goddesses who come from Hades to punish and to torment men. And again, that'll link you across to man's salvation, as I mentioned earlier, and eternal damnation. And even introduces a Fury as a character in the prologue to one of his plays. And in Richard III, Queen Margaret resembles an avenging Fury, doesn't she? Urging on men and the heavens to blood and revenge. Despite the violence, Seneca's plays are full of reflection, self-examination. That's always going to happen in your literary works. Characters analyse themselves in soliloquy, particularly. Richard makes great use of soliloquy when he's explaining himself and his motives to the audience. And in one of his soliloquies, he is driven to self-examination, Act 5, Scene 3. In the style he uses is linked to Seneca again, guys, because usually in the Seneca plays we get elaborate rhetoric. We get exaggeration, we get lengthy description, and this is clear in Richard III in his soliloquy as well, because he uses these elaborate rhetorical devices as he speaks. And Seneca uses stichomythia quite a lot, and this rapidly alternating lines, isn't it? It's a technique where the lines rapidly alternate, and again, it's similar to Richard III in the lines that he uses, in the interchanges that he has at the beginning with Queen Elizabeth, particularly in that whole section. He mimics Seneca in that regard in terms of elaborate rhetoric, and Seneca as well will use like morality and conventional morality, so what we view as morality. And he often uses proverbs as well as a means of sending messages, pointing out something, using statements via proverb. And Richard III also does this. And there's a few examples throughout the play. Where Richard III, guys, will slightly differ from Seneca though is because it also draws on other traditions as well. And one of the traditions it draws on is English dramatic tradition, because obviously this is Shakespeare, isn't it? And the medieval moral play. So the medieval moral play is used, guys, in Richard III in terms of there's a conflict between good and evil. That's clear in a lot of Shakespeare plays as well. And there is the dream episode, isn't there, in Act 5, Scene 3, where Richard, who is frequently referred to, as a devil or an agent of hell, a type of evil, has this conflict with the representation and the representatives of good and with God. Not totally dissimilar to plays like Macbeth as well. In the medieval, though, religious plays, devils and representatives of evil sometimes develop to be comic characters. They are there to add a little bit of comedy for us. Richard actually compares himself at one moment to one such character of moral play. He compares himself to a vice, doesn't he? He compares himself to an iniquity. I'm just checking my memory there. In Act 3, Scene 1. Okay? And this element in Richard, guys, it comes out in humour and it comes out in clowning around. For example, in the episode where he and Buckingham dress up in old armour and pretend to be terrified for the benefit of the Lord, it links obviously to a comic evil character. And this is also seen, isn't it, in the murder of Clarence as well. The use of the medieval structure as well, guys, is also used because one of the key things used in terms of the medieval play is that we would have the rise of a character shortly followed by their decline. And that's obviously not just a medieval idea, it's a Renaissance idea. It's an idea linked obviously to tragedy and tragic heroes. And this reminds us of something in the Renaissance period and in the medieval period known as the Wheel of Fortune, where men are uplifted and then naturally they are carried down. And Shakespeare uses this quite a lot, doesn't he? Where the central character increases in power and prosperity, and then obviously there's something happens usually in the middle of the play, and then there's obviously a quick decline following that. This pattern is obviously clear in quite a lot of Shakespeare's plays. I'm doing Richard III, it is clear in Richard III as well. Richard removes the obstacles, doesn't he, between himself and the throne, Clarence, the Queen's relatives, Hastings, and the way is clear for the charade in which he is offered the crown. And we see him at the peak of his power then, don't we? At the peak of his power, though, you know, in the same scene where he has the peak of his power, we also quickly find out that his alliance with the Buckingham ends. And we hear that Dorset has fled abroad to join Richmond. There's other reverses that quickly follow as well, including the bishop. The revolts against Richard are reported in many parts of the country, aren't they? Queen Elizabeth and Stanley correspond secretly with Richmond. And in the final decisive battle at Bosworth, Stanley's defection plays a huge part in Richard's defeat. So his decline, it happens rapidly after his peak. Again, that is something that is a narrative structure, if you like, as well. The play falls clearly into two parts, if you like. You've got Acts 1 to 3, where we see his rise to power, and then in Acts 4 and 5, we see his decline and his fall. And within both parts, there's huge fluctuations of fortune. Again, a common theme in Shakespearean plays. In early parts of the play, we see that he has setbacks like the failure of Buckingham to win the support of the London citizens is just one. And in the later part of the play, he has some successes when Buckingham's army is dispersed. So we've got this idea of, as I said earlier, the Wheel of Fortune being used in Richard III. And then there is something we can do with fate there, guys, as well, in terms of our writing and our ideas, really. Within the main plot, there are a few episodes as well that involve other characters that are pivotal to the story. For instance, the main ones are obviously concerned with the death of Clarence, the winning of Anne and her later regrets, the blindness and the fall of Hastings, the outmanoeuvring of the Queen's party, the coming to London of Prince Edward, Buckingham's alliance with Richard, their later quarrel, obviously, off the back of that, the emergence of Stanley as being quite important in terms of being an opponent to Richard. The other thing about the structure, guys, is that Shakespeare in Richard III uses a lot of parallel structures and parallel episodes. For instance, one example is the wooing of Anne and the wooing of Elizabeth, where one is really successful, the other isn't. So that's just one very simple episode in terms of parallels. We've got how some of the scenes are put together. So for instance, guys, in the opening scene of the play, it goes like this, okay, so stay with me. It goes soliloquy by Richard, conversation with Clarence. Soliloquy by Richard, conversations with Hastings. Soliloquy by Richard. Okay, now this is not accidental by Shakespeare, this is manipulation. And what it's really showing us, guys, is Richard deceives both Clarence and Hastings, doesn't he? And explains his deceit in the soliloquies that follow. Clarence is being taken to the Tower. Hastings is coming from it. So there's your parallel episodes. And this opening scene shows us that basically it's not accidental and it's not casual. Basically, it's showing you the manipulation of Richard III and on a larger scale, the working of God's providence